And to get us started, because we are on Indigenous lands, I would like to formally welcome Shamanstat Amanda Nahani from the Squamish Nation to formally open the session. Mandy, are you on? I don't think we can hear you. We might have lost Mandy, so let's give it a few seconds to see if Mandy can join us again. Mandy, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm back. Hoichka Usiam, Hoichka Ilodi, Hoichka to all the organizers who have been putting this event together. Just want to thank you for putting together such an amazing event, and I'd like to thank everyone who's taken the time out of your day to be here, to show up and to share your thoughts, share your wisdom with one another in a good way. And to start off in a good way, I'd like to share a song from our, I'll introduce myself. Neitha Ants Shamansot, Tnachantlas Kohotmishol, Iniska Ol, Kayachtin, Ti Hamalquim, Is Leotol, Is Kohotmish Ohohomeoch, Yewan Hatlan Swallowing Teetsits, Yewan Hat Discoqueen. So, welcome everyone to the traditional territories of the Hamalquim, the Skohotmish, and the Slewatol. My ancestral name is Shamansot. I come from the Skohotmish and the Nisgat Nation. Feels good in my heart to be here today. And I'd like to sing a song to start off in a good way, to ground everyone, to welcome you here, to celebrate that it's another day. We made it another day and through this pandemic, and we're all safe. So it's really worth celebrating and giving thanks for, and pray for all the families who are suffering. Pray for all the homeless people. We keep them all in our minds and our hearts. This is a prayer song. So this song comes from one of my great grannies, Sosolia, and it's called the Snowbird Song. So while I'm singing this song, take time to think of your elders, think of your family, think of your children, think of the generations who are coming up behind us. What can we do today to make their days a little bit more easier, a little more better? And give thanks for this beautiful day and all the beautiful resources that we have. Whoa, 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 hey, whoa, whoa, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, hey, aha, aha, yeah. Oh, 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 hey, oh, oh, hey. Aha, aha, yeah. Whoa, whoa, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. Whoa, hey, oh, hey. Oh, we'll see him. Yeah, one hot and swallowing. Thank you so much. Feels really good in my heart. And I just wanted to wish you all a wonderful event, and thank you so much for taking the time to have me here.
Ashkasiam Shamansat for always starting us in a good way. And this leads me into the first important message I would like to put out. As we're gathered in this virtual room together, I want to remind everybody to come to this room with your good hearts and good spirits and treat each other with respect. We have some community guidelines that our chat captains will be sharing in the chat, but I really encourage you to remind yourselves that we're all humans and we're all connected. So let's make sure that we remain civil and warm and welcoming and kind to each other tonight. Thank you. And I would also like to acknowledge our closed captioners who are joining us today and who will be helping ensure that closed captioning is provided to those who may need it. So again, there will be some instructions in the chat for how to access that if you need it. So just a little bit of context as we start. At the Center for Dialogue, we have been doing quite a bit of research on how to do public engagement more equitably. Inclusion is integral to ethical and effective public engagement. Hearing from people with diverse lived experiences leads to more innovative ideas, better decisions, greater public support of outcomes, and of course, stronger democracies. We cannot be a democracy if all the people on this land are not included in the decisions that we make. However, public engagement initiatives often struggle to draw participants who truly represent the demographic, attitudinal, and experiential diversity of the communities that may be impacted by such decisions. Even when the public is engaged, their voices oftentimes do not equally influence action, and differences in power and privilege play out not only in the engagement process, but also in how final decisions are made. Engagement processes that fail to address barriers and systemic inequities may cause more harm than good, reinforce power imbalances, leading oftentimes to poor quality decisions that do not serve the community's needs and decreasing the trust of our citizens in their institutions. The language of including diverse people sometimes masks systemic inequities that lie beneath patterns of underrepresentation in public engagement, but also in democracy. Focusing on inclusion can also perpetuate this dynamic where those who have historically held more power and privilege remain at the center of decision-making, engaging the marginalized when and if they please. So the purpose of this session today is to really figure out how do we double down on democracy? How do we seize this moment and transform how we do engagement and move away from what I call diversity facades towards real equity? So today's format will be a little bit like a radio talk show. We're going to hear from two very special guests that we're very grateful to have today from other parts of the world who will give us their wisdom and their advice on how to do public engagement better. We'll also have some small group discussions where we hope to learn from the wisdom in this room, as I believe all of us have a piece of the puzzle. So before we get started, I'm very curious to know what are some of the reasons why people are joining, and our lovely tech team that is supporting us today is going to just pop a little poll up there. So do you work in government? Do you work in engagement? Do you work with communities that have been historically erased from engagement? Or are you just stuck at home and with nothing else to do tonight and you just thought you'd come and hang out with us, which is really cool if that's the case. We love that. So I'll give it a few seconds so people can respond to that poll. I'm really disappointed that no one so far is stuck at home with nothing else to do. Y'all are busy people. Look at that. Wonderful. So we'll give it another second and here we go. So most of you work in the engagement field. Awesome. Some of you work in government. Welcome. We won't hold that against you. And some of you work with communities that have been historically erased. So lots of diversity. So I hope we can all collect this wisdom and benefit from it together tonight. So as I said, we have two wonderful guests tonight, and I'm really grateful to have them with us today. Nina Asterina, who is from Kota in Indonesia, and Atawhai Tibble, who is a policy advisor and cultural connector from Aotearoa, also known as New Zealand. And I will introduce them each in a moment. So maybe we'll start with a warm-up question for each of them and then move on to hearing a little bit more about some of their experiences and examples of how they do engagement a little bit differently. So if that's okay, I will start with Nina. And Nina comes to us from Solo, I believe. Nina, you're in Solo, right? Yes. In Indonesia. So Nina works for an organization that I have a lot of admiration for called Kota. And Kota is a nonprofit organization that does a lot of civic engagement and civic education and help cities plan better. So I'm going to give you some highlights of Nina's bio here. So as I said, Nina is the manager of urban inclusivity initiatives at Kota. Kota is a nonprofit organization based in the city of Solo, and they work with citizens to make their cities a better place. They're experts in urban planning and citizen participation, and they bridge dialogues by influencing urban policies, encouraging open access to information, providing civic education, and facilitating the involvement of all citizens, especially the marginalized and excluded. Kota has pioneered the use of technology and mapping to engage diverse groups of citizens and has been among the first to engage deeply with the disability community in Solo and Banjarmasin to support inclusive urban planning. Nina, welcome. Selamat datang. We're so pleased to have you. So the first question I have for you, Nina, to warm us up tonight is how important is it to build equity into city planning?
Thank you, Elodie, for inviting us. It's such an honor for Kota to be involved in this dialogue. So the importance of engagement of the communities and all these vulnerable groups is because all the policy and interventions is directly affecting them. So it's very crucial to invite them all to join from the designing, implementations, monitoring, and evaluations of the policies and interventions in the cities and then also the national level. I think that's all. Thank you.
And of course, I'm on mute, so here we go. Our second guest tonight is Atawhai Tibble. Atawhai is a strategic policy advisor from Aotearoa, New Zealand, with interests spanning from the economics of Māori well-being, the valuation of Māori language and culture, the measurement of social capital, the behavioral drivers of Māori outcomes, and Māori economic and social policy more generally. Atawhai actually led the first ever survey of Indigenous well-being undertaken by a national statistics agency. Atawhai is also a trained lawyer, but I learned that you didn't really enjoy law school, I believe. But Atawhai has extensive experience in public service, and really at the heart of all his work is connecting people, joining up worlds, languages, cultures, knowledge systems, data, and voices, and making the bridge between Māori and non-Māori people. Atawhai, welcome, and kia roa for joining us tonight. And my kickoff question to you is, how important is reciprocity in engagement when a community has been subjected to years of colonial rule and where trust can be very eroded?
Kia ora, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me, Elodie, and also to Amanda from the Squamish Nation. Can I acknowledge her beautiful singing and making us feel so welcome. In terms of reciprocity, for my people, but I think for everybody, it's everything, you know, it's not giving for the sake of taking, but being together and sharing. And I think reciprocity, at the heart of that, it is dialogue, not monologue. It's you know, connection with purpose and meaning, not transaction. And I think this is the problem with institutions. I think we built institutions, or we accepted institutions, or some of us did, because we thought it might provide efficient systems to communicate, and it's been the opposite of that. These institutions have created bureaucracies that just want to know answers to questions, and that's it. And actually, reciprocity to me is the dialogue, not the monologue. It's the sharing of ourselves with others. And from that, I believe, comes understanding. And without that, you just have people sending you forms, or, you know, officials telling you to do things and not listening. So I think ultimately reciprocity, I mean, it's a big thing in our culture, but ultimately it's at the heart of an exchange between people and peoples. So that's how I see reciprocity. Thank you.
Let's go back to Nina for a little bit. And I believe we have some slides to share on the work from Kota. But to get us started, Nina, could you speak a little bit about how you successfully engaged with the disability community on city planning?
Yeah, so before the start of the presentations, we engage with the disability because we realized that a heart of, like decisions making process, it should involve everyone, including the vulnerable groups. And then we realized during our works that it wasn't only for, like regardless their age, religion, race, and gender, it also including the disabilities, that some of the people are still left behind in the process. So that's why, like, we are starting to understand that these communities has to be involved in every stages of the decision-making process, because it doesn't limit to, their abilities and then also their needs, but also by involving them into the dialogues and then the implementations of the policy, it can also benefiting every one of us, something like that. So. Sorry, you're mute, Lottie.
I'm going to do this all night, just so you know. You spoke a little bit about the gains that can be made from hearing from all the voices in the city, and what specifically can governments gain from building that kind of capacity within communities?
By inviting these communities into the dialogues, the government can understand their aspirations and then their needs. So because sometimes, most of the time, the government think that one size fits all, but then regarding their abilities and then their needs is kind of different, because they have a specific requirement to be involved again in the implementation. Let's say like visual impairment, need accessible way in the mobility of the cities, and then there is also like a physical impairment, those who need a universal design standard to be embedded in the cities infrastructures, and then also a lot of like diverse disabilities have to be included, because they are citizens of the city, and then they have the rights to enjoy the fulfillment of their life in the cities as well.
Thank you. And what are some of the challenges that you faced when trying new methods of public participation? Because you've done so many different things, from mapping, from using games, from using cell phones to engage with people. Can you tell us a little bit about those challenges and how you sort of overcame them?
Yeah, so during our engagements, we also use like diverse methods like participatory photographies and then focus group discussions. Our tools and participatory approach and methodologies is very diverse because we have to accommodate all their experiences and then the aspirations. Sometimes they understand how to well-spoken in these dialogues, and then sometimes they don't understand how to voice out their aspirations and opinions because it was their first timers in these dialogues. So we have to accommodate these types of voices that been, have been hindered by them because they haven't been uninvited during these conversations. And that's the challenges is because they're first timers of these dialogues. So it's kind of hard to make them voicing out their aspirations. It's hard to make them understand about their actual needs and then, desires in the city development, because the first times, because they don't understand what their needs are because they mostly stayed at home. And then when they are being exposed to this kind of dialogues, they finally understand, oh, actually I need to mobile because, there is an access to education, there's an access to employment that haven't been really understood by them because they mostly stayed at home. And then there are several discussions that also voicing out the elderly needs because, in the community, sometimes the lack of, understanding from each other's, and then also there is a social stigmatizations from the community towards each other's, which hinders their skills and mobility and agencies of these residents. And then that's why we are trying to accommodate in our dialogues to provide these rooms for them. And then these challenges is we have to use creative and innovative methods to accommodate these. Like we can use photographies, we can use videographies, and then also pictures. And for the students, we can use a lot of crafts, drawings, and then painting, because it voicing the real aspirations from them, because there's several experiences that they may have. And then the second one is actually in the beginning of the data collections participations, we also realized that the community have been having this kind of tone of pessimism, because the actual process of data collections from the government usually time consuming, because it's a manual process. You have to spend hours with them to collect their data, and then they don't really understand how the government later on use this kind of in data, and that's why it creates a lot of pessimism and then reluctancy of being involved as a part of data collections process. And then with Kotakitas, we are using data collections by digital app-based tools, and then because it's very accuracy, and then also it's very quick way to understand about these communities, and then it because submitted also with the geographic reference information, it creates more nuanced information for them. And then at the very beginning, we're managing their expectations, so we don't come to them and we are doing this data collection process, you will get this, and this. We are not doing that, but we are trying to bridge this community's expectations to more indirect benefit for them. And then by doing that, actually from our process, we finally engage closely with them. They finally very welcomed, and then they are very excited to be involved as a part of the active society, because they are feeling appreciated when they are being heard during this part of the collections process. Because sometimes there is elderly, for example, and in children's, they being unheard for many reasons, they don't many people doesn't believe that they have the skills and agency to do so. But after doing several engagement, we finally understood that they also have an aspirations that they're very, very good to be implemented, and then it can benefit everyone. Let's say we have a safe school zones and projects in Banjarmasin, and then we invited the primary schools children's and then also the junior high school children's with and without disabilities, and then alongside of this process they are showing us empathy towards each other, they are very warm and then very kind, and they thinking about those with the disabilities, and specific needs, and to be accommodated in terms of safety and then comfortability. And these children is having their own voices to provide more safe and inclusive school zones. And then we bring these issues and aspirations for the government. And then the government is actually very surprised because, actually the children have their own voices towards their schools. And then after that, we are having a dialogues with the government and other stakeholders, from the practitioners, academicians, and then all of part of the stakeholders like DPO's representatives to access all these accessible ways in the safe school zones. And then we are finally building on these safe school zones projects, and right now is implemented and constructed during this time.
Wow, that's a lot accomplished, and with just understanding what people need and want and really allowing all those voices to the table. I know Kota Kita has also done quite a bit of work around climate risk assessments, and that's a big issue of our time right now. And working specifically with communities, with kampongs, neighborhoods, how do you think equity better supports mitigation and adaptation to climate change within those communities?
So yeah, in building up these issues is because the first thing, the access to information is very crucial, because we should know, these distributions of vulnerable groups in the city at first, and then by doing so is because they are the most at risk of vulnerable groups, because when the shocks and fragility times, if they are being undocumented in the city development, they are not being targeted by the right policies and then interventions in the cities. And by having this participatory data collections, we are bridging this data from the governments and then citizens to be more, being involved in the adaptations and climate change methods in the cities. And then also the second one, by having this participatory approach with the community, they finally getting exposed to several informations that's kind of new for them, that they finally understand about several issues like climate change and why it causes floodings, there are several understanding that they gain from our participatory, approaches, and that it can help them to better understand about this existing conditions of climate change and resiliencies in their neighborhood level. And it can help to better navigating and strategizing, start from their neighborhood level to build a more resilient neighborhoods and residents.
Thank you. And I noticed in the chat, we had a question already from the audience for you. We'll have like a dedicated time for questions, but I thought we do have a bit of time now. And someone's very interested in how you've used participatory crafts and photography. So I think in the slides, there is a picture of that as well.
Yeah, this one. So yeah, this is a methodology of participatory photographies and gallery work. We invite all different of persons with disabilities and then elderly also. So here on the right side, there is a girl using this so actually she's speaking in sign language, Indonesian sign language, and she's describing her experience, in kind of activities that she likes to do in the cities. And then see, the thing with the photography is actually you don't really understand the pictures until they tell them about the story. So the very interesting part is about the storytelling parts. So she's taking pictures of the statues in Banjarmasin, and then all the people is thinking that she likes the statue because it's really nice to see that in the city center. But she finally explained to us that she likes to do these sign language trainings in the statue with their friends, because it's the only moment she can actually speak with other people, because unfortunately this neighborhood doesn't understand how to communicate with her and vice versa. So during this our engagement, finally several residents understand that there is a sign language in, like a language that actually being applicable with this sort of like several communities. And then they learned how to do like a sort of like basic introductions and then greetings. So it helps them to connect more each others. And then the second picture is actually a man with the intellectual disability. So he doesn't understand about to speak in other people's. And then this photography helps him to navigate the aspirations. And then this is also pictures of students who's drawing about the COVID pandemic situations that are affecting their schools. And then the right side is the elderly participating in the mural painting for raising awareness during the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. By having these arts is open up more conversations regardless their age and disabilities, because like sometimes visual is language for all, so you don't really have to speak. So the pictures are already telling us about what the aspirations are. And then I think there is this one. Yeah,
wonderful. So really using imagery as storytelling and ways to communicate more information and more data in different ways. I really love that.
This is also the students using the crafts during our co-design workshops. So we are using this very simple craft that they can use in accessible way, because there are like several students with disabilities and then being assisted on the dialogue. So it helps them to create, like to visualize their schools with a simple crafting tools, and then they took photographs and then writing all the notes. They're very excited because this is the first time students being engaged this very important, conversations regarding their needs and accessibilities in the cities. And then by taking these aspirations to the government and then the mayor, if you can slide another slide shows during the government, we actually brings the students' ideas to the tables, and then the mayor is very surprised as well, because the students have their own kind of thoughts, and then basically it's very beautiful aspirations for them.
Terima kasih. Thank you so much for sharing that information. And for our viewers today, we will be sharing a number of resources by Kota Kita in the chat, but also in the follow-up email you will be receiving. And in a little bit, you'll get a chance to be in some breakout sessions, and some of you may be with Mina, and we'll be able to continue asking questions. But now I want to move on to Atawhai. Atawhai, welcome and thank you again for being with us today. I'm so pleased because I read some of your writing and your work, and I could not believe how parallel our thinkings were. But I wanted to start with asking you maybe to share a little bit about how you transformed what was going to be a statistical survey on Indigenous well-being into a really broad engagement with Māori in New Zealand.
Kia ora, thank you for that. I'm a little bit nerdy, so I've got to say that. I might talk to answer your question first, and then I'll do some slides. Yeah, is that okay? So
Sounds
I think
good.
the first thing is, I mean, obviously our context in New Zealand is different. All our contexts are different. And it's also challenging to talk about Indigenous ways as if they're universal. We've got to respect there's a humanity that's universal, but then there are different ways that we do things. A lot of these things are shaped by our environment, the land, the sea, the rivers. But there are similar things, and I think similar themes that I hear or see when I read literature. I think all of us are trying to understand how it's very difficult unless you live away from the dominant colonizing culture unless you can live away from that, you need to find a way to connect with it. So I think part of my bridge building approach and being successful in education, it's been trying to find common language, common opportunities to connect what might seem very foreign and very Western for some of our communities, and trying to work out, well, what's the, I don't want to say win-win, that's too transactional, but like what's the benefit for our Māori community, for our people, and how is it also benefiting the agencies that may require data? So I think in a nutshell, I think everybody has different views about what well-being is. There's no, silver bullet. Obviously, money in a Western sense is important, but thankfully, more people are realizing, those ancient wisdoms of First Nations people that you can't eat the money. You can't eat it. It's not really providing for you, and you can't destroy all these things and think that you are well. So, in a nutshell, what we did with Te Kupenga, which was the Māori Wellbeing Survey, Te Kupenga means a net. Somebody's ringing a bell in my stairs. I'm going to have to ignore it. Sorry. It's lunchtime in New Zealand. It's lunchtime.
It might be your food arriving.
No, I think it's probably, with respect, I have privileged children. They are ordering LPs or albums on Amazon. It will be the Amazon guy bringing music records using mum and dad's credit card. I'm going to ignore it. If I get back to the data, the well-being approach, it was a good time in New Zealand when I was involved in it, because there were more and more people who were saying it's not just money, living standards are more than what you can see, and that, sorry, the person's knocking on my door. Can I just run up and get it? I'm sorry. Can you just hold fire, everybody? Only on Zoom, eh? Sorry.
So that will be our NASA moment tonight. As my good colleague Jen always talks about, there's always something that happens when we're doing these sessions online, and this would typically be what happens. And I'm so pleased, for once it's not my doorbell ringing or my kids getting stuff delivered on my credit card. So I get to share that with someone else for a little bit. Anyways, we'll give Atawhai a few seconds to come in, but I wanted to start asking people, if you have any questions for our guests, please do type them in the chat, and I will be keeping an eye on the chat and making sure I can get to these questions as we go through the session. And yes, my colleague Jen is sharing. There is also equity in action, giving people what they need. Exactly. So we're doing that right now. And I hope we can get Atawhai back. Oh, there's Atawhai. Wonderful. We're all human, so it's all good.
Well-being, data, bringing it together. Indigenous perspectives, Western perspectives, trying to find a way to bring it together. Couldn't do it without engaging with people. There are lots of wonderful Māori academics. Linda Tuhiwai-Smith, Professor Mason Jury, lots of people who I think they served many years in the academy, learning the colonial master's ways, but always resisting and fighting. Probably in those days it was through their words. But, with the wisdom of them, going around the country, meeting up and working with people who, at the heart of all my work, it's all about relationships. It's really all about relationships and trying to get trust. So my slides will tell you this, but it's just trying to bring people together, getting them in a good space, being present like we're trying to be today, with all the distractions around us. And I think when we opened, you said something, Lydia, about bring your hearts. People know if your heart is not in a piece of work. It is a risk for those of us who work in these spaces with government, because we do bring our heart, we bring our full selves. And there's been a lie that you cannot be professional and be emotional. It's a lie. Because we can't take our skin off when we go to work. We can't take our metaphorical cloaks of our grandmothers and grandfathers. We can't remove them. We are still their children. So the good news is, even though that can be hard in the office of the oppressor or the colonial master, when we go back into our communities and are embraced by them, and they are proud of us for trying to do the best by them, the dialogue happens. The understanding, we chip away, we try to build things, and I think it's on the strength of that. What's the saying, the Newton one, we stand on the shoulders of giants? We don't say that because standing on someone's shoulders is bad form culturally for us. It can put certain genital parts above somebody's head, and it's not a good thing, at least culturally for us. So we say we sit at the feet of the elders. We're kind of like warming their legs, and they see further for us, and we listen. So long story short, but all those types of things are the types of things that I do and try to incorporate and bring into what is essentially a policy practice. And all my friends who are a bit more quantitative than I am, they do that stuff well, and I do the more qualitative heart stuff. And ultimately what we're all trying to do is bring it together. Because I think when we bring it together, we are listening to the voices of the less heard, of the seldom heard. But we know we need this other kind of knowledge to bring together to make a thing that helps us move confidently into the new frontier, into the new space. That I think all of us, our elders, there was always something different out there that wasn't the same of just sitting where you were in your village. You had to move out, you had to find new places, new spaces. We've always had voyages across all of our cultures. So I suppose what I'm saying is, how do we bring this stuff together while retaining the essence of who we are, our values, our goals, our community, our food, all the good things. And so that our children and our grandchildren, and they are all safe, strong, positive, good. So I think I've got some slides. Maybe we'll go to those. I've spoken too long, and sorry about that. I apologize.
No, not at all. So Adele's going to put the slides up, but while she does that, you wrote a piece called The 5 Whys of Engagement, and not why in English, but why in Māori language.
Yeah.
And in those 5 whys, you have a practice called the 1,000 cups of tea. And when I read that, I laughed so much because in my culture, tea is very important.
Yes.
And I sort of coined the term, when I do engagement, I have 100 cups of tea.
Oh.
So I don't know, there's a differential there between you and I, but we're still drinking lots of tea.
We're drinking tea.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the 5 whys of engagement that you developed.
I think the 5 whys in the slide deck, all of those whys are in here. Yeah. So why don't we roll the slide deck? I'll just start off with this one. So my name, Atawhai, sorry. If we go back, sorry, Del. Just Ata, there you go, and Phi, you say Phi as in Wi-Fi. I had a Dutch friend who did this with his name. His name was Jaap, J-A-A-P. And he wrote this in his card, and I thought, how to say his name? Because I've been called everything all my life, from R2D2 to Arafat to many things. And, I laugh because I'm a robust guy, but I know for lots of our people, those things can be offensive. But it's okay, This is helping people say my name properly. So we might go to the next slide. Thank you, Adele. And we might roll this is a video. This will show you kind of what I'm talking about and how we roll here in Aotearoa. Oh, can we hear the music? No, we can't.
Adele, you might have to share the sound.
This is a promotional video. I'm not promoting that you will all come to New Zealand, but it's a really good example of how I think the country as a whole is starting to embrace and understand a lot better the nuances of Māori society and Māori culture. So I don't know if the sound will come up, and if it doesn't, I can roll, we can move on. But I just wanted to share this. Adele, if it's possible, good, but if it's not, it's all good, mate. Maybe we'll send them the link, Adele? We'll just send the link.
In the community, welcoming you.
This is good.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
When I say kia ora to somebody, it's an obvious acknowledgement to them. It is the hello for us in Māori.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora. It's friendly. You've got no enemies here.
It's really important to acknowledge a person. By using the word kia ora, we acknowledge not just them, but everything about them. Where they come from, who they come from. And that's a big one, who they come from.
Kia ora, auntie. Kia ora, uncle. Kia ora, kia koe, bro.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
I'm saying it on behalf of my family, past and present, in the community, welcoming you.
When she gets known, the phrases vary, the context varies, but the words are still the same.
Hey, kia ora, welcome on board.
We have a saying, he iti te kupu, nui te kōrero. And what they're saying is, although the word is only small, the meaning is great. You know, it's massive.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora to us means good health. As Māori, when we were born, we're born as kaitiaki. And kaitiaki means guardian. And we are guardians of the whenua, of the land, and guardians of people. It's the manaakitanga that you're going to give to the people. Manaakitanga means to be looked after. Our thing is to go above and beyond of looking after people, looking after the land.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
We don't get up and say what street we come from. We talk about our mountains, we talk about our rivers, our oceans. The worldview we have, the land and everything upon it is our older sibling. For us, that's why we have so much respect for the land, for nature. That's why all our designs come from nature. It's that whole cycle, you know, it's that whole life force, that mauri, that order.
Kia ora is such a beautiful word. It's got such a wonderful meaning.
It comes from the heart. It's not just lip service, no matter who says it.
Have a go, be brave, say the word kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Awesome. So kia ora, everybody. Kia ora. This is my whānau. This is my family. My dad's no longer here anymore. He's the guy in the middle, in the white shirt, and to the left, my brother, to the right of him at the edge, my brother, he passed away recently. But this is at my marae, which is our house, our meeting house, our longhouse. And there are way more children now in terms of grandchildren. And my two kids aren't on here, and neither is my wife. So this is a while back. I was much skinnier. But kia te mea nui he tangata, it's people. At the heart of the Five Whys approach, at the heart of our engagement approach, it's people. It's about connecting with people. And it's really, really important. This is a piece of wisdom I got from a friend of mine. You can only travel at the speed of trust. This is really, really important when we engage with people. And we need to find trustworthy people that will engage with our people who, for Māori, there are lots of people who don't trust the government. They don't trust strangers because bad things have been done to them, by other people. But at the same time, it's weird because when you go and visit those people, our people, they will welcome you and treat you like kings and queens. So, you know, it's that balancing act. My thing is always be relational, not transactional. There's a hongi, I think that's Prince Harry, and that guy is Willie Apiata, who won a Victoria Cross for some stuff he did in the war. But the action that they're doing is called the hongi, and it's a really, really close coming together of people that recognizes the sharing of breath. So it's quite a personal act, and it's what we do when we connect and meet with people. But I should also say we're adapters, because when COVID came along, we weren't allowed a hongi anymore. So our own tribal elders said, no, do things differently. So we're also an adaptable people. I think the other thing is we want people to engage with us with their heart and soul, not just their mind, eh? That's really, really important. I think all of us, on the next page, Adele, thank you there, mate. These are our warrior women. We have our dance festivals, our traditional dance festivals. And a lot of our women recall kind of, when we had the colonial wars and you had to be quite tough to survive. Even when our men went to World War II for the country, they had to be quite tough to survive. So, we sing songs, we haka, which is our war dance. And we are all in on this, men and women. So, but when we connect with people, we want to connect with heart, soul, and mind. Be good ancestors. These are my sisters. My sister on the left with the bright pink lipstick, she's a cancer survivor. She's a traditional caller. So the calling is what our women do for the Governor General, Patsy Rigger, who's, not Patsy Rigger, Dame Patsy, really. And the one in the middle, my sister Maru, she's a caller and a singer. And my other sister on the left, she lives in Australia. And that's her grandson, or our grandson, our mokopuna, little Max. And when I say big good ancestors, I think what we mean to the government and to other people is we need to think intergenerationally. We've got to stop thinking 3 years, or, the budget cycle, or the project lifetime. When people come and see our people and they engage, they want to know not what's in it for us transactionally, but how are we improving our relationship intergenerationally. And it is a hard one for government people, because they're only used to thinking about 3-year cycles. And here's it takes 1,000 cups of tea. When people say, how long does it take to have a good relationship with Māori? The 1,000 cups of tea there, Aotearoa, all that really is about is, this is not a shake and bake. It's not one biscuit. It's not one packet of biscuits. It's not one cup of tea. It's a process. So just on this, when I raise this with government people about this is how long it takes, all of the accountants frown, because they say, who's paying for that? But anyway, have I got another slide? That might be it. Hey, all of that, you can hear from the way I think and speak. It's really a people process. And this might be my final comment on that whole process stuff. So we have ways of doing these things that are Māori, yeah? And it can be in our longhouses and our marae. We might have different food and we'll have different ways of doing things. But I once shared similar slides with my work colleagues, and the CEO came up to me and she said, Atawhai, I know exactly what you're talking about. My grandmother taught me those things. And she's a European woman. And what she said to me was, Atawhai, my grandmother taught me to meet visitors, to treat them well, to, give them your best china, your best cup of tea, your best things, engage with them fully, and remember that tomorrow you want to see them again. And I said to her name was Dorothy, I said, Dorothy, you are a CEO of a major organization. So what happened to us that those things we learned from our grandmothers, we let them go and we forgot them? And she said, that's a really, really good point. Because my main message to people is engaging with people is not that much of a secret. We all have been doing this for centuries in different ways. And engaging meaningfully is something we all should know naturally. So what has happened to corporations, agencies, and governments, that we lost all those things that our mothers, grandmothers, and others taught us. And all I'm saying is we've got a Māori way of doing that, but you've got your own way too. Kia ora.
Thank you for saying that. And I hope when we're in the small groups, you can also share some tips for how to talk to the accountants, because I think we've all come up against that wall at some point. And I know for my part, some of the cups of teas I had to pay out of my pocket because the accountants weren't too happy with me. But anyways, thank you for that. I know there were a couple of questions in the chat, but folks, I'm very aware of time too, and I want to give you a chance to speak as well. So we're going to put you into smaller groups. Some of you will be with Atawhai, some of you will be with Nina, some of you will be with some of my colleagues as well. And I hope that will give us a chance, first of all, to talk to each other a little bit, and because I'm getting tired of talking. And it'll be an opportunity to ask questions of each other, because I do believe we all, as Atawhai said, know how to do this and have the keys to how to engage meaningfully and create trust with our communities. I think people are having too much fun.
It was a great conversation in my room, I won't lie. It was lovely.
I'm going to give it a few seconds for folks to come back in. Time flies when we're having fun. Okay, folks, I see everybody is coming back into the main room. I just was sharing with my colleagues that time really flies when we're having good conversation. It's really hard to abruptly cut it short like we're doing in this online Zoom environment. But we're nearing to the close of this session, and I wanted to give a chance to both of our speakers to provide some last words of advice. And I'm going to ask perhaps Nina to tell us in one sentence, how would your best piece of advice to government to engage more equitably?
So, thank you, Adele. So in building more inclusivity, it takes all of us to utilize more participatory and inclusive tools in the engagements. Government should take actions and make changes, firstly, in providing meaningful participations for vulnerable groups in decisions that directly affects them, including in the design, implementations, and monitoring of inclusive policies and interventions. Thank you.
Thank you. So that participatory piece really key for democracy and for better engagement. Atawhai, your last piece of advice, perhaps also relating to maybe governments who are engaging in the context of the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples and the necessity to use free, prior, informed consent in some of the work that is done by government.
Oh, that's a big question. I'm going to go back to that thing I said. Data is people. Data is people. Data is about people. Data is of people. It's all about people. So, you know, that's why the human-centered approach has to be the way going forward. You know, recognizing people, their rights, you know, looking after their rights, including them, enabling them to participate. It's really, really important. So I've got no magic words to say. Elodie, could I just say I've been really, really humbled by this. This is the second humbling meeting I've had this week. I was at a prison the other day, helping inject culture into some coding work that someone's doing, and I was sitting next to guys who have been inside for 15 years and for 9 years, and they were respectful, they were focused, they were hopeful, and maybe that's the message to all of us. We've just got to be hopeful, eh? We just got to go for it. It's only people like us joining together, things like this. We inspire each other. You've inspired me. Can look up people's work. Thank you, Nina. Understanding your participatory stuff. I think that's the thing. Just connect those dots and be hopeful. Kia ora.
Aotearoa. And again, I think that's a really good message, putting the people back in democracy, which democracy is for the people, by the people. So I think, again, that people-centered approach has to be front and center in everything we do. Before we close down, I did want to reassure everyone, we didn't get to everyone's questions. We are collecting them, and we will try to send a follow-up email to all of you, providing some of the resources from our guests today and trying to answer some of those questions. I also want to really encourage you, if you can, sign up for our Center for Dialogue newsletter. We do publish case studies on a regular basis, showcasing some of the best work done in dialogue and engagement across the world. So again, places to get some ideas of innovative things that are happening. I also want to let you know that we are releasing an international version of our guide, Beyond Inclusion, Equity and Public Engagement. Stay tuned, it should be up on our website in the next month or so. So again, if you sign up for our newsletter, we'll let you know when that is out. And I would like, before we close, to allow my colleague Michelle Bested to tell us a few words about our next session, where she will be presenting actually a case study from the Lower Mainland here.
Yes.
Michelle.
Thank you so much, Elodie, and kia ora. Kia ora. There we go. See, I need to practice more, but I appreciated that I was being encouraged to practice, so kia ora. That was just, I want to echo those words of gratitude. What a nice way to end the day. And I took many things from the group conversation that we had, but then also from our two panelists, just in terms of really coming back to the basics of our engagement work is all about people. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that when we make things maybe more complicated than they need to be. And then also Nina was very inspired by some of your participatory work related to the photography and the crafts. And so I'd love to follow up with you and find out a little bit more about that. So thank you. And I just wanted to take this opportunity, and I believe we have a slide to officially launch the next iteration of our Doubling Down series, which is Doubling Down Engagement Inspiration from the Burnaby Model. And it's going to be taking place on June 24th. And it's perfect that Elodie gave that really nice segue related to a case study. Registration is open, and I think you can register in the link. If Adele could place the link in the chat, that would be great. So for this Doubling Down, we're going to be reflecting, as Elodie said, on a project that the Center for Dialogue has been working on with the City of Burnaby over the last year and a half. And it's a housing project looking at housing affordability and community engagement. And maybe you're asking, why would I be interested in this conversation? Well, this engagement process really was built on three specific elements. The first was that it was very much designed by the needs of the people of Burnaby. It found a really interesting way to integrate stakeholder and resident engagement. And then I think what was most unique is that it provided this opportunity for residents and stakeholders to come back together a year and a half after they made the recommendations, for them to be able to evaluate progress that on their own recommendations. So they were essentially invited back by the city to evaluate the progress that the city had made on their recommendations. So that was really inspiring, and we learned a lot of lessons for that. So I would say, if you're interested in public engagement, if you're interested in learning or talking about how we can meaningfully close the loop with participants, or maybe you're seeing how we can better integrate task force or stakeholder engagement with resident engagement, then this might be the space for you. We have a really terrific panel. We have Mayor Hurley from the City of Burnaby, Leanne Garnett from the City of Burnaby, our very own Shauna Sylvester, a task force member, Tom Armstrong, as well as a Burnaby resident, Victor Yin, who will be speaking about his experience. And so we really look forward to hopefully seeing many of you there. As I mentioned, it's going live now, so you can be the first to register. But thank you so much, Elodie, for giving me the opportunity to plug that event. And thank you again to all of you for being here.
Thank you, Michelle. And I really encourage you to attend that event. It's going to be really fantastic. So we're in the last 2 minutes of the session. I want to raise my hands up to all of you and say Chen Kwen Mantomi for taking time for some of you at an unreasonable hour to really have this discussion with us. Terima kasih to our guests from Indonesia and kia ora. Tena kutu to Atawhai for also spending time and sharing his wisdom with us. Again, let's all remember to put humans at the center of our engagement work. And I think if we continue to progress at the speed of trust, as Atawhai encouraged us to do, and really develop our participatory ways of changing systems, I think we'll be in a much better place in supporting our democracies going forward. So again, thank you to everyone. Thank you in particular to all the staff that made this event possible tonight. Adelcium, Claire, who's in the background, Sabrina, all our team on the communications team, and all the folks who are at the center of our center and really help us do this work in a good way. So again, thanks everyone. Have a fantastic evening, afternoon, or day, wherever you are. And I hope we'll see you again very soon. Take care.